الدنيا وفي الآخرة وفي صومنا هذا يكون هو عبارة عن عافية بدن وعافية دين.
دكتور عاملينك يا أستاذ.
الحقيقة زي ما يقولوا ما في صدفة في الوجود. أخونا معانا زايد كريم هنا راجل طيب علينا. أخونا دكتور عبد الله إرنست بابا. عبد الله ده هو بلاك أمريكان وعنده تجربة فيري انترستنج يعني الناس يسمعوها. لرحلته للسودان وخليج السودان شنو الفترة اللي قضاها في السودان من ناحية مجردة. عبد الله بيتكلم عربي وبيفهم عربي لكن مرات يتكلم بالانجليزي عشان يوضح نفسه اكثر احسن ما في. لكن هو يعني حتى لما يتكلم بالانجليزي عنده المقدرة العالية جدا انه الناس يفهموه لانه كانه ما يعني لك ان تسمع بها تسمع الصومة حتى زول العصام ممكن يسمعه بطريقته وحدانيته بانسجامه مع نفسه. فحقيقة قبل يومين انا يعني كنت بتكلم مع نفسي براجع بدري داير اروح عبد الله عشان يجي يزور فورت ورسينا. هو جاي من سياتل محاضر في جامعة سياتل. فداير ادعو يجي لانه انا عارف تجربته ايش كانت شكلها شو يعني. كل ما يحكيها يعني خلي دول يزيد يقينا بانه السودان كان وهو مركز دائرة الوجود تماما.
المفروض يتكلم المفروض يتكلم.
ما عذر يعني ستخبط لي خواطري الحقيقة. فبندي الفرصة لعبد الله يتكلم عن نفسه وتجربتي اللي انا كنت اقولها بخليها هي.
انا برضه نسمع تجربتك مع كويسه ولا
السلام عليكم ورمضان كريم. وأنا شخصياً مبسوط جداً من العاصمة. I will speak in English because that's the extent of my Arabic. Yeah, I'm in Dallas these days, Fort Worth, for my family reunion. My family is a large family, and every 2 years we meet in a different city. Last year Houston, this year Dallas, year before that Phoenix, year before that Detroit. We go around the country, every 2 years we meet. I was hoping last year we wouldn't come back to Texas because we were in Houston, and in Houston it was 105 degrees at midnight. And so since I'm from Seattle, that's too hot for me. So I said last year, I hope we don't come back to Texas in 2 years. And then they said we'll come to Dallas, Fort Worth. And then I said, alhamdulillah, at least I can come and hopefully see it at Jamboree. And that would be a benefit. So I didn't plan it. I didn't contact anyone. I just came. But my intention was to call Luffy, to call Mahmoud Amin, and to just let them know I'm in town and I missed them. And as soon as I spoke to Luffy, he said that he'd been thinking about me. He was hoping that I would be able to come. And so here I am. I don't know that I have anything to say particularly useful or interesting at this time. I hope that there will be plenty of time for questions. People might have questions of me, and I would be welcome to answer any questions you have. But I'll tell you a little bit about how I ended up going to Sudan, and then meeting with Ustaz Mahmoud, and then staying in Sudan for 9 years to study with him. I studied with him for the full time I was in Sudan. After 1 month in Sudan, I went to Beit al-Aqwan, and I stayed in the same house until the security police confiscated our house and I had to live somewhere else. But the reason that I stayed in one house in one city for 9 years, or almost 9 years, was because I was looking for an understanding of Islam that made sense to my mind, my Western mind. I'm born in this society. I was born a Christian. I come from a fairly religious family. I studied Christianity, I studied world religions, and I still had, my mind told me that there was something more, something clearer, and that made more sense than what I was learning. Also, being a student of history, I studied a little bit about Islamic culture, a little bit about Nubian culture in Sudan. I was very interested in ancient Egypt. I was interested in Nubia. But mostly I was interested in an understanding of what our Creator intends us to do on this earth. Why are we here? That was a question I was trying to answer. And so I studied Hinduism. I studied Buddhism. I studied a little Mormonism. Whatever came before me, I examined it. And I wasn't satisfied with anything. I practiced yoga, I practiced Tai Chi, I prayed in English, my Christian prayers. But when I found Sufism, I was told that Sufism is the true practice of Islam. It's not talking about how we should be as Muslims, it's treating people as we should be as Muslims. In other words, it's about ma'amala and not about what you look like you're doing. It's not about what you appear to be doing. It's about your relationship with God and your relationship with God's creation. So when I heard that about Sufism, I was interested. The man who taught me Islam in 1977 came to Hawaii, and it's a strange story how he came to Hawaii. He said he woke up in the morning and he said to his wife, I'm going to Hawaii. He's in New York, Queens, New York. And his wife said, why? He said, I don't know. I had a dream that I need to go to Hawaii. This is true. And so he caught a plane. He was just carrying a small bag, and he arrived in Honolulu. And when he arrived, it was clear he was a Muslim. He dressed like a Sudani. He had jalabia, tagia, vegan, right? And when he arrived in Hawaii, some of the guys that I was studying Tai Chi and doing yoga with, and Qigong, Eastern martial arts, said, this brother came from the East Coast. We've got to talk to him. I said, where? He said, no, he came in the airport. He's at the University of Hawaii, and we're going to meet him. And so he had been in town 2 days, and there was a meeting for him at the home of Salman al-Awad. No, this is not true. No, the first meeting wasn't at Salman al-Awad's house, but it was at some of the brothers I knew in Sudan. They weren't Sudanese. Some of the brothers I knew in Hawaii. So we met Sheikh Mohammed, and Sheikh Mohammed taught. There were 8 of us that he taught, and 7 of us became Muslims at the same time. Some of them were teachers, one of them was a professor, one of them was a psychologist, one was me, a student. All of us sat down with this man. That day, 7 of the 8 of us became Muslims. The only one that didn't become Muslim was a psychologist, and he's a Freemason. You know what Freemasonry is? Yeah. Okay. He was a Freemason, he didn't become Muslim. The rest of us did. At the same time, Sheikh Mohammed said to me, he called me Abdullah. This is my name now. He gave me my name. He said, Abdullah. My name was Ernest up to that point. He said, Abdullah, I wish you could come with me to the Sudan. He said, the land of the Sufi. He said, not Saudi, Sudan. Sufi. So like this. He's rubbing. Because he's saying Sudan is a land of black people. Right? And so that was music to my ear. Oh, so it's Islam and it's African. This is Muaz. Muaz, huh?
Sophie.
Okay. Okay, so he's directing me to Sudan, and he then introduced me to Sudanese in Hawaii that I didn't know. Salman al-Awad and Bakri al-Hajj and Darius. Darius was from southern Sudan. He was Shuluk. He introduced me to the three of them. Salman became my sheikh. Salman taught me how to pray, how to make wudu, how to do the basics of prayer, fasting, and so forth. And then after a year or so, Salman and his wife Maimuna decided they were going to return home to Sudan, and they invited me to come with them. I had been practicing Islam less than a year. I said to Salman, I want to go to Sudan because Sheikh Mohammed had said, Sudan, Sufi. So I want to meet the Sufis in Sudan. The reason I wanted to go there was because Salman was one of the nicest gentlemen I ever met in my life, right? And so I thought maybe Sufism has something to do with this beautiful man. He treated people with ma'amala. You go to his house, he gives you everything. He'll leave his bed and allow you to sleep in his bed. If you call him, he'll go anywhere to get you, that kind of person. So that. So I thought maybe Islam in Sudan had something to do with Salman. Why is he like this? I've met a lot of Muslims, I've met other Muslims, but the Sudanese, they stood out to me. They stood out. So, but I asked Salman something because I had a problem. When I would observe Muslims and so forth, I always would observe the status of women because I have very strong women in my family. And so I was looking for an understanding of Islam where there was equality between men and women. Because in my heart and my mind, I believe that that has to be true of our Creator, that He looks at us equally. He didn't create one to be here and one to be there permanently. This is what Ustaz Mahmoud taught me. My understanding at the time was there should be some understanding of Islam that applies equally to men and women. And so I asked Salman if there was an understanding in Sudan like this. He says there's one teacher in Sudan. He said, I've read all of his books. I said, is he still living? He said, yes. I said, does he, do you think we could meet him? He says, yes. He said, I read all of his books and I believe everything he said. I said, if we go to Sudan, you actually can introduce me to him. He said, yes, I know somebody that can introduce us. I said, okay, I'm coming. I came to Sudan with the intention of meeting Ustaz Mahmoud. He told me that the one man in Sudan who had a modern understanding of Islam, where there was equality between men and women, was Ustaz Mahmoud Muhammad Taha. So I said, okay, I want to meet him. This is in Hawaii, 1977. This is true now. 1977, Salman and Maimuna left from New York. I traveled with them from New York to Gaddafi. It was Ramadan, just like it is now, 1977. Ramadan in Gaddafi was beautiful. I had never really experienced. That was my first Ramadan that I really experienced. I experienced it in Gaddafi. Everybody, Badr al-Fatur, is going from house to house, and come on, Gaddafi is very beautiful, right? Thatched houses, oh my God. Living in the courtyard, the stars, it's just a beautiful place. And so I was like, wow, this is like Africa. I love this, okay? And then in the evening, we're visiting one house after another. We eat here, we drink here, we eat some dessert there, then we do it again. We eat here, we drink here, like that, just all night long, right? And so I loved it, and I loved the people and the way that they related to one another. After about a week or 10 days, Salman said, okay, we're going to go to Umdurman. My friend Merani can take us to meet Ustaz Mahmoud. So I'd only been in Sudan 10 days when I met Ustaz Mahmoud, roughly. He brought me to Ustaz Mahmoud's house, and when I came, there was a room about this big, his saloon. Smaller than this, maybe, smaller than this. The saloon to Beit Ustaz. And I found all of the brothers were sitting on one half of the room, like this brother here is sitting. Right? This is Muhammad. This is Muhammad's son? Yeah. Yeah, they were sitting like this. Maybe your father was one of them, not sure. They're sitting like this, and everybody is like waiting for something. Lakin muhazzabin. Grown men waiting. And so I said, what are they waiting for, you know, like this? And then the sisters started coming in, and they filled up the side of the room like this. And so the sisters are here, and the brothers here, and I'm sitting in a chair, you know, a guest chair. And then Ustaz Mahmoud came into the room. He flowed into the room. All in white, with his white tagia and his safinja. And so he just flew in, he came into the room, and I'm looking at this man, and I was like, oh my goodness, I see what they're waiting for, right? Because just his presence when he came into the room was just something amazing. Then he started talking. He spoke perfect British English to me. He spoke English with a British accent, okay? Perfect English. I'm going, oh my goodness, you know? And then he asked me a few questions, and he was so kind, and he seemed like he was just so concerned about me. He was focusing on me, you know? He has that ability. If you meet him, everybody who meets him feels like you get 100% of his attention. That's how I felt, right? He said, okay, I have a question. He said, why would a person who was a Christian come all the way across the world to Sudan? Right? So I'm searching for religion. Why are you coming? And I told him I felt that something was missing. I didn't know exactly what it was, but I knew that something was missing, and I was searching for that thing. He said, that's fine. He said, if you want to understand our ideas, there's some books written in English I can give you to read. He had like 3 books. One of them was Risalatani, the English version. It's a short version of it. And then toward the second message of Islam, and maybe the return of Christ, maybe, I'm not sure. But I know I read towards the second message of Islam in Risalatani. I read them, and I took the books, and when I was leaving the house, Bus al-Hamla came in. And this was the thing. I already was very impressed with the brothers and sisters. I was very impressed with Ustaz Mahmoud. His house was very humble. That's the other thing about it. Mud house. No fans, no dirt floor somewhere, you know. Very simple. But I was more impressed with his character. When I left the house, the bus of Hamla was coming back from distributing the books. And I heard them before I saw them. I heard the bus, and then I heard chanting. I didn't know what they were saying, but it was beautiful. It was just a chant to me. It was just beautiful. I couldn't even understand what it was, but it sounded beautiful. And then I looked up, and everybody in the bus was wearing white. The sisters were dressed in white toques, and the brothers were dressed in white jalabiyah. So all I heard was a beautiful thing, and I looked up and I just saw beautiful people dressed in white coming in. And I asked Salman, I said, Salman, are these his students? He said, yeah, these are his pupils. I said, I'm coming to study with him. And I hadn't even read the books yet. When I saw them, I said, I'm going to come study with you. I told Salman that. But then I went and I read the books so I wouldn't seem stupid. You know, so I read the books, and then maybe 2 days later, or 3, I came back to Ustaz Mahmoud. He again, it was time of Jalsa. So first we sat with the brothers and sisters, then people left, and then we were kind of just with a few people in the room. And he asked me what I thought of the books. And I really, honestly, I will tell you this. I still am reading Risalatani. And every time I read Risalatani, in English now, I read it in English. Every time I read it, I learn something new about myself and about Islam. Every time I read it. I just read it that one time in English, and when he asked me what I thought of it, I said, I think you are the truth I've been looking for. I said, it's kind of strange, right? He said, the only way that you could know if we're that truth is if we practice what we write, what we preach. If we practice it. He said, and the way that you could find that out is to stay and to observe. Come live with us and observe our practice. And I told him, my bags are outside the door. Remember, I had already decided I was going to come, even before even meeting you. So I brought my bags in, and then the brothers took me to the side, and they wanted me to get rid of my beard. I had a little small beard like my brother did. I had a beard. And they met with me at Jalsa, and they told me that Republican ideology is not about how you appear. It's about being a Muslim in your behavior. Not to look like a Muslim, but to be in submission to God and to act accordingly when you interact with people. And I said, fine, but what does that have to do with my beard? So I had a big debate with them about should I cut my beard. My beard had nothing to do with religion. It was just my culture. That was my first meeting with the brothers. And I found them to be very serious about my beard. They wanted to make sure that I understood that Islam is not how you appear, right? It's how you behave. So I kept the beard for a while. Just because I want to say that to say to you, I'm not so easily convinced that just because somebody says something to me, I change my mind. That's my point. So, now I don't have a beard because they convinced me in time that too many people who appear to be Muslims are misrepresenting Islam. Let me say that again. I was convinced when I was in Sudan that too many people who appear to be Muslim are misrepresenting Islam in the worst possible way. They're engaged in behavior that is absolutely un-Islamic. And people believe it's Islamic. Some people believe it's Islamic. They're doing it from their heart, not because they're evil, but because they're convinced by some of the shuyukh, by some of the scholars, that the 1400-year-old laws of Islam are the last word on Islam. They're convinced that there is no new understanding of Islam. This is what I understand to be true. So when I live with the Republicans, what I learned primarily from Ustaz Mahmoud and from the brothers and sisters that were devoted to him was that everybody was trying to be the best person that they could be. This was what they were trying to do. And so I like that the discipline. Our discipline was like this. I'll give you an idea of one day. This is one day. Our day would start when we'd wake up in the morning and we would pray Fajr, the morning prayer. Then we would have a small meeting within our house. This was all the brothers. I lived in Beit al-Ikhwan Aleph. We would have a meeting of the brothers in the house. And then the brothers who went to work first would start to shower. Whoever had to leave earliest would start to shower. There were about 15 brothers that were permanently in my house. When we had major work that we were doing, the number could go up to 25 or 30, but usually about 15. Then we would go and work. Almost every brother in that house had a job where he worked. Some of them were just students, but that was their job, to be the best student that they could be, right? Once we would come home after work or after school, we would shower. Some of the brothers would be responsible for making our lunch. We prepared it ourselves. The men prepared their own food. We prepared our food and it was always simple. Salad and beans, beans and salad, little piece of meat, you know, mullah weka, maybe, no. You know, some very simple things. After we would eat, we would pray asr. Then we would have a chance to rest and to prepare ourselves for our evening job. Our evening job was just, this is Jamhurine's practice for 9 years that I lived there. Our evening job was just before sunset. just before sunset, we would leave our houses. We had 4 brothers' houses in Omdurman. Alif, Ba, Jim, Wadal. And the sisters stayed in Beit al-Istas. All the brothers' houses would march in by Masira to Beit al-Istas. And we would chant. We would chant Allah until the sunset. Then we would pray Maghrib. Right? After Maghrib, this is after a day's work. This is our work in the evening. After Maghrib, the buses would show up. We would get on the buses and we would go out and do Hamla. We would usually go to Souk, Omdurman, Khartoum North, or Khartoum. We would distribute the books and we would hold discussions. The men and the women. Our sisters would go in the street and discuss the ideas of the day with women and with men. And you know that wasn't easy in Sudan for the sisters to do that. They would do it. After that, we would be out maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours. The buses would come, they would pick us up, we come back to Beit al-Istas. Then we have a jalsa. Okay? Now it's like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. Isn't it? 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night. We have a jalsa, and we report back to Ustaz Mahmoud the interesting things that happened to us during the day. If you had nothing interesting to say, you just listen. After the reports, Ustaz maybe would comment here and there, right? And then he would maybe tell us what the upcoming program is going to be, right? And then usually he would tell us Narakum B'khair, and we would go to bed. It would be 11:30. We would go back to our houses and we eat our food. We couldn't have food. We had like hatalo. We would have just like bread and milk. Bread, just warm milk and bread. And we were very happy. We eat this. Wait, this is Then I will show you. I want to say what the jamboree we're doing just so people understand. Then after we finished eating, it was sometime would be close to midnight, right? We go to sleep with the intention in our heart to get up and pray during the night. Look at this. And many of us would. Some would, and if you could, you did. If you couldn't, it's okay. Sleep, you need it anyway. You get up in the night and you pray your night prayer, right? And then you maybe get another half hour or so of sleep, and then your day goes over again, day after day after day after day. That was our typical practice. And so, all I can say is that 9 years in Sudan, the best 9 years of my life. I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about Islam. Ustaz Mahmoud prepared us for the world that we see today. Ustaz Mahmoud was talking about Salafiyin and fundamentalism. Before it appeared, he said that fundamentalism is going to be the main threat to modern civilization. Before it appeared, this is what he was saying. People would hear this and they would say, oh, come on. We still had communism in existence then, right? We had capitalism in existence then. We had so many other things going on in the world. So that said, no, fundamentalism is the issue. Because it's always about Islam. It's always about this Islam returning to this earth. That's our promise. That Quran that was completed by Allah is to be lived on this earth. When He perfected our religion, right, we weren't ready for it. This was Ustaz Muhammad's teaching. As we develop, we have become ready for the perfect version of it. We have to apply it. It's that simple. Or we continue to practice. He said it's like this. We'll continue to he said the Islam that was perfect for the 7th century could not possibly be perfect for the 21st century. No more than if we had a 7-year-old child and we had a perfect outfit for that child. That child is now 21 and you want to take that same outfit. Sorry, babe. You want to take the outfit that's perfect for the 7-year-old child and put that outfit on a 21-year-old person. It's that absurd to try to force that law that was perfect for the 7th century on the 21st century. But to say that Islam is complete and Islam is here for the 21st century. It says we have to go back to the original verses that were revealed in Mecca, and we have to develop a new Islamic law based upon the principles of economic equality, political equality, and social equality. What he says is so obvious. It's so obvious and so necessary, because he's talking about the way in which we organize ourselves in society, and he's talking about Tariq Muhammad, which is the methodology that allows us to organize ourselves so that we can actually live at that level in the society. So I'll stop there first. Chef is tired. Enough of the talk. So if there's questions, thank you for listening. That's kind of what it came to me to say. I hope that was useful. And if you have any questions.
When was the last time you were in Sudan?
Last time I was in Sudan was 9/11. Honestly, I left Sudan on 9/9 to return to Nairobi, and I flew out of Nairobi on 9/11. That was the last time I was in. 2001, so 12 years ago.
During your stay in Sudan, have you ever encountered racism against you? I'm not talking about racism against the group of
Jamboree. You're talking about me?
racism against you.
Okay. So the question is this. It's a good question. When I was in Sudan, did I ever encounter racism against me? And I have to say, honestly, I didn't encounter racism. What I encountered was the Sudanese receiving me. The Jamboree accepted me. Ustaz Mahmoud accepted me. And the Sudanese community accepted me for who I was. I did run into people who had assumptions about who I was before they met me, right? So I ran into people that had assumptions, but once I talked to them, they no longer had those assumptions. I ran into Southern Sudanese who accepted me as well. I went to Juba. Ustaz Mahmoud sent me to Juba on a book campaign. And when I was in Southern Sudan, I also was accepted in Southern Sudan. But I was accepted in Southern Sudan not as a Northern Sudanese. They first thought I was. They accepted me in Southern Sudan as Zunji Amriki.
Yeah.
I went to Juba University, and I was talking to Juba University, and some seniors came out. I had a little group this big listening to me. I was talking about the ideas of Ustaz Mahmoud. Ustaz Mahmoud sent me there for that purpose on a small campaign. And it was going well. And then some upperclassmen came out, these guys, and one of them said, and stopped everything. He just popped his fingers. Everybody stopped. I stopped. Everybody stopped. He said, "Who are you?" I said, "Oh, I'm Abdalla Ernist, and I came from..." He said, "Who are you?" I said, "I'm a student of Ustaz Mahmoud, and I..." "Who are you?" I said, "I'm Zunji Amriki." He said, "Zunji Amriki?" I said, "Yeah, he's okay."
Maybe he thought you were Jali.
He might have been right. I didn't tell him that. No, but... So I didn't run into racism, but I really was fortunate that people accepted me. Many people didn't understand, why would you come from America? I came from Hawaii, right? Why would you come from Hawaii to Ungerman? You know? They asked me, some people were like, "Who is this?" Even the Jamboree, yeah? They're like, "Is he like that?" So some people were wondering, right? If I was okay, Why is this guy here? But no, I didn't.
Yes.
Yes, sister.
So, do you believe in the strict original form of Islam, or the 21st century?
Yeah.
Do you believe in changing it to fit our lives now, or
Yeah,
keeping it strict?
That's a great question, sister. That's a great question. I'm a student of Ustaz Mahmoud, right? And so how I see things is really based upon my ability to understand his teachings, right? From what I understand of his teachings, Ustaz Mahmoud is not, Ustaz Mahmoud believes completely in what he calls the first message of Islam. He believes completely in it. He believes that it came by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it was perfect for the 7th century. And it's based on the Quran, an understanding of Quran. But certain chapters of the Quran, the Medini chapters of Quran, and not the chapters of Mecca. So yes, I believe in the original Islam that was revealed. I just believe it was perfect for the 7th century, but it's not perfect for us 1,400 years ago in our development, 1,400 years later in our development. The beautiful thing about Ustaz Mahmoud's teaching, though, this is so important for people to understand. Ustaz is not saying we need to change Islam to fit the 21st century. Ustaz would never say that. He's saying Islam is suitable already for all time, but it has to be properly understood. This is what he's saying. He said Islam itself has 2 messages. I was trying to remember the ayat. Okay, he said it has 2 levels of it. There's 2 messages in it. And so, why I'm saying that is, he's not saying every individual needs to find what.
الله نزل أحسن الحديث كتابا متشابها
That's
مثاني.
what I was thinking of. Yes,
Okay.
yes, it's in the Asim Kitab, Thani. But the idea is that it came from God. It's already 2 levels. And by basing the law now on the original level and not on the level that came more recently, the Median levels, we can establish an Islamic law suitable based on the principles, the humanistic principles that are talked about today but not realized today. Because people talk about democracy in this country. You saw what happened with the democratic system at Trayvon Martin. Look at the court system. It's broken. Right? We still have real issues around trying to be democratic. People talk about being socialistic, but they don't have the capacity to be socialistic. So what I'm saying is that, yes, I believe in the first message of Islam. I also believe that Islam has 2 messages. And I think if we approach it that way, we avoid the problem of every Muslim deciding what works for them. Because that's what's starting to happen. Every Muslim is starting to say, well, I don't quite understand how this could have been God's word. This is a very, you have to think about that statement. God revealed that, but I don't really believe that. That's a very strong statement. Ustaz Mahmoud is not saying something like that. He's saying Allah revealed that at a time and a place for a particular purpose, to serve its purpose. And that is the first message of Islam. The time has come now for the higher principles to be applied. The law needs to be derived from the higher principles. And that way, we have a cohesive religion that everybody can understand, and it all comes from the Quran. It's not from outside of the Quran, it's from inside of the Quran. And that's the beauty of this teaching. That's so different than someone, we have a lot of intelligent people in the Islamic world, and they're looking at the Quran and they're coming up with their ideas and their solutions, and they're mixing this and that. So that's not mixing anything. He's taking it from the Quran itself. And this is what convinced me of it, I was convinced by the fact that he's saying something very frightening, that there's 2 messages of Islam. That's frightening to think that, because if that's true, then we are in a very dangerous situation as Muslims when we think it's only one message. Okay, so if he's correct, if Ustaz Mahmoud's correct, and I'm confident he's correct, right? Then it's important for everybody to take a good look at what he's saying. Because I think when people do, they'll see he's saying something that's very, very important, and that is that Islam has the capacity to govern our lives, all of us, men and women, Muslims and non-Muslims. See? Right now.
So, brother Abdullah, sorry, after you became a Muslim and you learn more about Islam, have you tried to convert anybody to Islam, or have you tried to...
That's a great question. Have I tried to convert anybody to Islam? That's a real powerful question. My best attempt to convert anybody to Islam is to try to convert myself to a Muslim. This is what my struggle has been, to try to, because this is the problem. There's one problem with Fiqh al-Jamhuri, right? Is that once you learn it, you have a real tremendous responsibility on your hands. Now, right? Right? Once you learn it, you have this huge responsibility on your hand to try to practice it. And the practice is very high level of practice. Right? So my issue about but I will say this. When I'm practicing Islam as well as I can, or attempting to practice it as well as I can, people are interested in what I'm doing. They're interested in what I'm saying. That's what I'll say. But attempting to go out and convert someone, I'm more trying to just convert my stubborn self to a Muslim. That's a great question, because one of the beauties of Christianity,
Abdullah, what was the question?
the question was, since I've come back to the States after becoming a Jamhuri, have I experienced racism or oppression because I'm now converted to being a Muslim? And I was going to go back and say this. One of the beauties of Christianity is that Christians allow people the freedom to change their mind, right? So there's not the pressure on a Christian. I was born a Christian, right? So when you're a Christian, if you decide to convert to Buddhism or Islam or Hinduism, you're not going to find people that are threatening you, or you know what I'm saying? It's going to be okay, you know, especially in the Western world. It might be in the United States in particular. So even in my family, which is a religious family, some parts of it, not all of them, but you know, some parts of it, I got some fear. Their understanding of what Islam was, right? And then being afraid for me when I told them I was a Muslim. But in my immediate family, what they noticed was I came back from Sudan a better person than when I left. See? So this convinced my sisters, this convinced my mother and so forth, that I found my grandmother. You see? Whatever it is that was, it's okay. That's a really important thing to think about, is how we as Muslims are, you know, because people will say, well, Islam's the fastest growing religion in the world. Well, Christians say the same thing about Christianity. I don't know which one is true, right? But I do know that Ustaz Mahmoud said, he talked about a hadith that says, where the Holy Prophet Muhammad is with the Sahaba, and he's saying to them that at the end, you know, there'll come a time when people will be called to rise against you, just like you're calling people to a feast. That there will be people rising against Muslims, and they'll be joining in against Muslims, just like they're going to have a feast. And his companion said to him, well, we won't be many during that time, will we? And he said, no, you will be many, but you'll be like the foam on the top of a river. You won't have any substance, and God won't care anything about you.
تداعى الأمم على القصعة.
قالوا أن قلة نحن قال كن كفاء
كثير ولكن
Yeah, and so that's why Moon said that time is come. That time is coming. So when you're doing the work that you're doing about, well, we know what Islam is in our hearts. We have it. We know what it is. So how is it that we're not attracting people? Right? That's the question. How is it that we're not attracting people? How can we be repelling people with Islam? We can't. We can't. You can't repel people with Islam. Right? We're repelling people, but it's not with Islam. It's with a misunderstanding of Islam. That's what I think.
But shrinking.
Right. September 11 is it's Allah's timetable. You know, He's making the issue forefront now for Muslims, right? Because there's nowhere to hide, right? There's nowhere to hide. It's like, you're Muslim, okay. Okay, tell me about that. Why? What do you think? What do you believe? Right. And so that's important. That's important because it's forcing us to have to not just be in the habit of being Muslims, not just being content with our personal practice. Now we have to be concerned about how we're perceived in the world, the relationship between what we believe to be true and what other people believe to be true about us and about our religion. So it's like Allah put us on spot. It's like the kids say, He put us on blast. He put us on blast every time.
صعب عندك حاجة سؤال ولا حاجة؟
I have a question. So, according to you believe in Islam or you believe?
Yes.
Because this is where you get your letters. Okay, which I have no problem. But of course, I'm not a Jamhuri.
Okay.
This is my friends, my girlfriend, that they have things. I agree to some, I disagree to some.
Okay.
Maybe I didn't learn it the right way. So my question to you, since you know a lot about that, you become, now you consider yourself a Muslim. But for me, I'm a Muslim, no matter whatever is life, whenever you have faith. So you find, like, when you talk about yourself, you think you always like, for instance, they are Muslim and they are Jamhur. Because this is their, I don't know how to say it, I'm not going to say
Their path.
Exactly, their path. So you think the same thing, either you write yourself, you are a Muslim and then Jamhuri, or you are just Muslim and you believe on people like me. You believe on the beliefs, but for
Okay. That's a great question too. Sister, this is how I see myself. I see myself as a person who's trying to become the best Muslim that I can possibly be. Okay?
you find yourself in,
Yes.
you find that in Jamhuri.
I don't think, honestly, I don't think I'm Muslim at this level. I think I'm Muslim definitely at La ilaha illallah Muhammad
Yeah, I
Rasulullah. I'm Muslim at that level for sure.
For
Okay?
sure, that's-
And then once I came in here, I'm trying on Tariq Muhammad to move to that higher level of Islam. That's how I see myself. And this is the part of the Jamhuri. This is where the Jamhuris come in. The clearest and the most convincing explanation of the path between here and here, I found with Ustaz Mahmoud.
Okay.
That's what I.
Especially maybe you're right. I just wanted to hear it from you because I think the Western society is it's easy to not easy. It's the best way to introduce Islam that way because it's like if you introduce it the way it's I'm not gonna say it the right way or the wrong way. It's the way that we grow on it and we grow it like I am, okay? I don't know if I myself, I believe on that. My mom and dad taught me that. Maybe I still never does something. But if I try to convince one of my friends that I'm Christian, the way I grow and I tell her do this, she will never do this. Because for her it's like, oh, this is not. But I cannot convince her with something else because I don't know the belief of some other, which is, sometimes I feel like I really need to know something else before maybe, but I can't. I tell them, hey, this is Islam, this is how it is, I have to do it this way. As you say, something is right or wrong, but we believe on it, we just have to take the whole thing. But it's good if there's some people coming out of the, like, you are not born Muslim, I'm born Muslim, so I go with, but you are not born Muslim, so you have the opportunity to learn more and bring something else to other world.
Thank you for that. And I teach at a college in Seattle, Washington, and I have a course I do on fundamentalism in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And in the course, I always try to introduce some of Ustaz Mahmoud's ideas. And the students love it because they hear about Jewish fundamentalism and Christian fundamentalism and Islamic fundamentalism, and they're, oh my goodness, you know, this is a very dangerous thing. And then when they hear about Ustaz Mahmoud's ideas, they're very happy to understand that there's Muslims that have an understanding that is appealing to the intellect, right? And appealing to the heart. So I think she's right. I think it is a very good way to present.
I have a question on this.
Yes, sir.
Have you written about your experiences in the 70s?
Yeah, what I did is there's a movie being not enough. That's the first answer. No, not enough. I've written a little. There is a movie being made on Ustaz Mahmoud, and I'm part of that. And so I've been editing some of the. After we would eat, we would pray Asr. Then we would have a chance to rest and to prepare ourselves for our evening job. Our evening job was just, this is Jamhurine's practice for 9 years that I lived there. Our evening job was just before sunset, we would leave our houses. We had 4 brothers' houses in Umdurman. Alif, Ba, Jim, wa Dal. And the sisters stayed in Beit al-Istas. All the brothers' houses would march in by Masira to Beit al-Istas. And we would chant. We would chant Allah until the sun set. Then we would pray Maghrib. Right? After Maghrib, this is after a day's work. This is our work in the evening. After Maghrib, the buses would show up. We would get on the buses and we would go out and do Hamla. We would usually go to Souq, Umdurman, Khartoum North, or Khartoum. We would distribute the books and we would hold discussions. The men and the women. Our sisters would go in the street and discuss the ideas of the day with women and with men. And you know that wasn't easy in Sudan for the sisters to do that. They would do it. After that, we would be out maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours. The buses would come, they would pick us up, we come back to Beit al-Istas. Then we have a jalsa, okay? Now it's like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, isn't it? 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night. We have a jalsa, and we report back to Ustaz Mahmoud the interesting things that happened to us during the day. If you had nothing interesting to say, you just listen. After the reports, Ustaz maybe would comment here and there, right? And then he would maybe tell us what the upcoming program is going to be, right? And then usually he would tell us Narakum Bakhair, and we would go to bed. It would be 11:30. We would go back to our houses and we eat our food. We couldn't have food. We had like hatalo. We would have just like bread and milk. Bread, just warm milk and bread. And we're very happy. We eat this. Wait, Then I will show you. I want to say what the Jamhuriyeen were doing, just so people understand. Then after we finished eating, it was sometime would be close to midnight, right? We go to sleep with the intention in our heart to get up and pray during the night. Look at this. And many of us would. Some would, and if you could, you did. If you couldn't, it's okay. Sleep, you need it anyway. You get up in the night and you pray your night prayer, right? And then you maybe get another half hour or so of sleep, and then your day goes over again, day after day after day after day. That was our typical practice. And so, all I can say is that 9 years in Sudan, the best 9 years of my life. I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about Islam. Ustaz Mahmoud prepared us for the world that we see today. Ustaz Mahmoud was talking about Salafiyin and fundamentalism before it appeared. He was talking about, he said, that fundamentalism is going to be the main threat to modern civilization. Before it appeared, this is what he was saying. People would hear this and they would say, oh, come on. We still had communism in existence then, right? We had capitalism in existence then. We had so many other things going on in the world. So that said, no, fundamentalism is the issue. Because it's always about Islam. It's always about this Islam returning to this earth. That's our promise. That Quran that was completed by Allah is to be lived on this earth. When He perfected our religion, right, we weren't ready for it. This is Ustaz Mahmoud's teaching. As we develop, we have become ready for the perfect version of it. We have to apply it. It's that simple. Or we'll continue to practice. He said it's like this. We'll continue to. He said the Islam that was perfect for the 7th century could not possibly be perfect for the 21st century. No more than if we had a 7-year-old child and we had a perfect outfit for that child. That child is now 21 and you want to take that same outfit. Sorry, baby. You want to take the outfit that's perfect for the 7-year-old child and put that outfit on a 21-year-old person. It's that absurd to try to force that law that was perfect for the 7th century on the 21st century. But to say that Islam is complete and Islam is here for the 21st century, says we have to go back to the original verses that were revealed in Mecca, and we have to develop a new Islamic law based upon the principles of economic equality, political equality, and social equality. What he says is so obvious. It's so obvious and so necessary, because he's talking about the way in which we organize ourselves in society, and he's talking about Tariq Muhammad, which is the methodology that allows us to organize ourselves so that we can actually live at that level in the society. So I'll stop there because Sheikh is tired. Enough of the talk. So if there's questions, thank you for listening. That's kind of what it came to me to say. I hope that was useful. And if you have any questions.
So, Brother Abdullah, when was the last time you were in Sudan?
Last time I was in Sudan was 9/11. Honestly. I left Sudan on 9/9 to return to Nairobi, and I flew out of Nairobi on 9/11. That was the last time I was there. 2001, so 12 years ago.
During your stay in Sudan, have you ever encountered racism against you? I'm not talking about racism against the group of
You're talking about me?
racism against you.
Okay. So the question is it's a good question. When I was in Sudan, did I ever encounter racism against me? And I have to say, honestly, I didn't encounter racism. What I encountered was the Sudanese receiving me. The Jamhuriyin accepted me. Ustaz Mahmoud accepted me. And the Sudanese community accepted me for who I was. I did run into people who had assumptions about who I was before they met me, right? So I ran into people that had assumptions, but once I talked to them, they no longer had those assumptions. I ran into Southern Sudanese who accepted me as well. I went to Juba. Ustaz Mahmoud sent me to Juba on a book campaign. And when I was in Southern Sudan, I also was accepted in Southern Sudan. But I was accepted in Southern Sudan not as a Northern Sudanese, who they first thought I was. They accepted me in Southern Sudan as Zunji Amriki. I went to Juba University, and I was talking to Juba University, and some seniors came out. I had a little group this big listening to me. I was talking about the ideas of Ustaz Mahmoud. Ustaz Mahmoud sent me there for that purpose on a small campaign. And it was going well. And then some upperclassmen came out, these guys. And one of them said, and stopped everything. He just popped his fingers. Just everybody stopped. I stopped, everybody stopped. He said, "Who are you?" I said, oh, I'm Abdalla Ernist, and I came from, he said, who are you? I said, I'm a student of Ustaz Mahmoud, and who are you? I said, I'm Zunji Amriki. He said, Zunji Amriki? I said, yeah. He said, okay, continue.
maybe he thought you were Jali.
He might have been right. I didn't tell him that. No, but... So I didn't run into racism, brother. Really, it was fortunate that people accepted me. Many people didn't understand. Why would you come from America? I came from Hawaii, right? Why would you come from Hawaii to Omdurman? You know? They asked me, some people were like, who is this? Even the Jamboree, yeah, they're like, we're trying to get to America, and this guy's coming from Hawaii. So some people were wondering, right, if I was okay, Why is this guy here? But no, yes, sister.
So, do you believe in the strict original form of Islam, or the 21st century?
Yeah.
Do you believe in changing it to fit our lives now, or
Yeah,
keeping it strict?
that's a great question, sister. That's a great question. I'm a student of Ustaz Mahmoud, right? And so how I see things is really based upon my ability to understand his teachings, right? And from what I understand of his teachings, Ustaz Mahmoud believes completely in what he calls the first message of Islam. He believes completely in it. He believes that it came by the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and it was perfect for the 7th century. And it's based on the Quran, an understanding of Quran. But certain chapters of the Quran, the Medini chapters of Quran, and not the chapters of Mecca. So yes, I believe in the original Islam that was revealed. I just believe it was perfect for the 7th century, but it's not perfect for us 1,400 years ago in our development, 1,400 years later in our development. The beautiful thing about Ustaz Mahmoud's teaching, though, and this is so important for people to understand, Ustaz is not saying we need to change Islam to fit the 21st century. Ustaz would never say that. He's saying Islam is suitable already for all time, but it has to be properly understood. This is what he's saying. He said Islam itself has two messages. I was trying to remember the ayat. Okay, he said it has two levels of it. There's two messages in it. And so why I'm saying that is he's not saying every individual needs to find what...
الله نزل أحسن الحديث كتابا متشابها من
That's
الثاني.
what I was thinking of. Yes, yes, it's in the Quran. Ahsan kitab thaniya. But the idea is that it came from God. It's already two levels. And by basing the law now on the original level and not on the level that came more recently, the Median levels, we can establish an Islamic law suitable based on the principles, the humanistic principles that are talked about today but not realized today. Because people talk about democracy in this country. You saw what happened with the democratic system and Trayvon Martin. Look at the court system. It's broken, right? We still have real issues around trying to be democratic. People talk about being socialistic, but they don't have the capacity to be socialistic. So what I'm saying is that yes, I believe in the first message of Islam. I also believe that Islam has two messages, and I think if we approach it that way, we avoid the problem of every Muslim deciding what works for them, because that's what's starting to happen. Every Muslim is starting to say, well, I don't quite understand how this could have been God's word. This is a very, you have to think about that statement. God revealed that, but I don't really believe that. That's a very strong statement. Ustaz Mahmoud is not saying something like that. He's saying Allah revealed that at a time and a place for a particular purpose, to serve its purpose, and that is the first message of Islam. the time has come now for the higher principles to be applied. The law needs to be derived from the higher principles. And that way, we have a cohesive religion that everybody can understand, and it all comes from the Quran. It's not from outside of the Quran, it's from inside of the Quran. And that's the beauty of his teaching. That's so different than someone, we have a lot of intelligent people in the Islamic world, and they're looking at the Quran and they're coming up with their ideas and their solutions, and they're mixing this and that. So that's not mixing anything. He's taking it from the Quran itself. And this is what convinced me of it, I was convinced by the fact that he's saying something very frightening, that there's two messages of Islam. That's frightening to think that, because if that's true, then we are in a very dangerous situation as Muslims when we think it's only one message. Okay, so if he's correct, if Ustaz Mahmoud's correct, and I'm confident he's correct, right? Then it's important for everybody to take a good look at what he's saying. Because I think when people do, they'll see he's saying something that's very, very important, and that is that Islam has the capacity to govern our lives, all of us, men and women, Muslims and non-Muslims. See? Right now.
So, Brother Abdullah,
Sorry.
after you became a Muslim and you learn more about Islam, have you tried to convert anybody to Islam, or have you tried to...
Yeah. That's a great question. Have I tried to convert anybody to Islam? That's a real powerful question. My best attempt to convert anybody to Islam is to try to convert myself to a Muslim. This is what my struggle has been, to try to, because this is the problem. There's one problem with Fiqh al-Jamhuri, right? Is that once you learn it, you have a real tremendous responsibility on your hands. Now, right? Right? Once you learn it, you have this huge responsibility on your hand to try to practice it. And the practice is very high level of practice. Right? So my issue about but I will say this. When I'm practicing Islam as well as I can, or attempting to practice it as well as I can, people are interested in what I'm doing. They're interested in what I'm saying. That's what I'll say. But attempting to go out and convert someone, I'm more trying to just convert my stubborn self to a Muslim.
After you came back from Sudan, after converting to a Muslim and everything, has anyone thought have you encountered racism before that you converted from your religion you were born to?
That's a great question, because one of the beauties of Christianity,
Abdullah, what's the question?
the question was, since I've come back to the States after becoming a Jamhuri, have I experienced racism or oppression because I'm now converted to being a Muslim? And I was going to go back and say this. One of the beauties of Christianity is that Christians allow people the freedom to change their mind, right? So there's not the pressure on I was born a Christian, right? So when you're a Christian, if you decide to convert to Buddhism or Islam or Hinduism, you're not going to find people that are threatening you, or you know what I'm saying? It's going to be okay, especially in the Western world. It might be in the United States in particular. So even in my family, which is a religious family, some parts of it, not all of them, but some parts of it, I got some fear. Their understanding of what Islam was, right? And them being afraid for me when I told them I was a Muslim. But in my immediate family, what they noticed was I came back from Sudan a better person than when I left. See? So this convinced my sisters, this convinced my mother and so forth that I'm fine, my grandmother. You see? Whatever it is, it's okay.
Yeah, I have a video on YouTube about, it's called Voice of the Asian American Muslim. I was talking if I put it in the right words, but I guess some people's views could have been changed.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that that's a really important thing to think about is how we as Muslims are, you know, because people will say, well, Islam's the fastest growing religion in the world. Well, Christians say the same thing about Christianity. I don't know which one is true, right? But I do know that Ustaz Mahmoud said, he talked about a hadith that says where the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is with the Sahaba, and he's saying to them that at the end, you know, there'll come a time when people will be called to rise against you, just like you're calling people to a feast. That there will be people rising against Muslims, and they'll be joining in against Muslims, just like they're going to have a feast. And his companion said to him, well, we won't be many during that time, will we? And he said, no, you will be many, but you'll be like the foam on the top of a river. You won't have any substance, and God won't care anything about you. This is a hadith.
يوشك
انت ده عليك الاكل على القصعه.
كما تداعى الأكلة على القصعة. قالوا أن من قلة نحن الذين يا رسول الله قال بل غثاء وغثاء السيل.
كثير
ولكن
Yeah, and so that's what Mahmoud said, that time is coming. That time is coming. So when you're doing the work that you're doing about, well, we know what Islam is in our hearts. We have it. We know what it is. So how is it that we're not attracting people? Right? That's the question. How is it that we're not attracting? How can we be repelling people with Islam? We can't. We can't. You can't repel people with Islam. Right? We're repelling people, but it's not with Islam. It's with a misunderstanding of Islam. This is what I think.
But you think that's probably after September 11th, right? Very much right now, Islam is shrinking.
Right.
September 11th.
September 11 is you know, it's Allah's timetable. You know, He's making the issue forefront now for Muslims, right? Because you can't. There's nowhere to hide, right? There's nowhere to hide. It's like, yeah, you're Muslim, okay? Okay, tell me about that. Why? You know, what do you think? What do you believe? Right? And so that's important. That's important because it's forcing us to have to not just be in the habit of being Muslims, not just being content with our personal practice. Now we have to be concerned about how we're perceived in the world. The relationship between what we believe to be true and what other people believe to be true about us and about our religion, you know. So it's like Allah put us on spot. You know, like the kids say, He put us on blast. He put us on blast after 9/11.
صار عندك حاجه سؤال ولا حاجه؟
I have a question. So, according to you based in Islam on Jamhuri,
Yes.
because this is where you get your initials. Okay, which I have no problem. But of course, you know, I'm not a Jamhuri.
Okay.
This is my friends, my best
Okay.
friend, but they have views. I agree to some, I disagree to some,
Okay.
because maybe I didn't learn it the right
Okay.
way. So my question to you, since you know a lot about that, you become, now you consider yourself a Muslim.
Yes.
But for me, I'm a Muslim, no matter Jamhuri or whatever, everybody's like,
Good.
and everybody have way. So you find, like, when you talk about yourself, you think you always like, for instance, what you're in, they are Muslim and they are Jamhuri, because this is their, I don't know how to say it, I'm not going to say
Their
second.
path. It's their
Exactly, their path. So is it you, same thing to you, you write yourself, you are a Muslim and then Jamhuri, or you are just Muslim and you believe on Jamhuri like me, you believe on their beliefs, but you are not part of it.
Okay. That's a great question too. Sister, this is how I see myself. I see myself as a person who's trying to become the best Muslim that I can possibly be. Okay?
You find yourself in,
Yes.
you find that in Jamhuri.
I don't think, honestly, I don't think I'm Muslim at this level. I think I'm Muslim definitely at La ilaha illallah Muhammad
Yeah, I
Rasulullah. I'm Muslim at that level for sure. Okay? And then once I came in here, I'm trying on Tariq Muhammad to move to that higher level of Islam. That's how I see myself. And this is the part of the Jamhuri. This is where the Jamhuris come in. The clearest and the most convincing explanation of the path between here and here, I found with Ustaz Mahmoud. That's where I am. Okay?
Especially maybe you're right. I just wanted to hear it from you because I think in the Western society, it's easy to, not easy, it's the best way to introduce Islam that way. Because it's like, if you introduce it the way is it, I'm not going to say it the right way or the wrong way. It's the way that we want it and we want, like I am, okay? I don't know if I'm myself, but given that my mom and dad told me that, maybe I stand up and do something. But if I try to convince one of my friends that are Christians, the way I talk and I tell her, do this, she will never be this. Because for her it's like, oh, this is not, this is not, this is it. But I cannot convince her with something else because I don't know the feel of someone, which is, sometimes I feel like I really need to know something else to convince her, but I can't. I tell her, hey, this is Islam, this is how it is, I have to do it this way. As you said, something is right or wrong, but we believe on it, we just have to take the whole thing. But it's good if there is some people coming out of that, like you are not born Muslim, I'm born Muslim, so I'm going, but you are not born Muslim, so you have the opportunity to learn more and bring something else to other people.
Thank you for that. And I teach at a college in Seattle, Washington, and I have a course I do on fundamentalism in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And in the course, I always try to introduce some of Ustaz Mahmoud's ideas. And the students love it because they hear about Jewish fundamentalism and Christian fundamentalism and Islamic fundamentalism, and they're, oh my goodness, this is a very dangerous thing. And then when they hear about Ustaz Mahmoud's ideas, they're very happy to understand that there's Muslims that have an understanding that is appealing to the intellect, right? And appealing to the heart. So I think she's right. I think it is a very good way to present things. Yes, sir. Yeah, what I did is there's a movie being not enough. That's the first answer. No, I'm not enough. I've written a little. There is a movie being made on Ustaz Mahmoud, and I'm part of that. And so I've been editing some of the scenes in the movies, and it's in right now. It's gone to a Hollywood producer, and it's going to a documentary producer, and hopefully it's going to come out. So that's been one of the things. But I also need to write my own story, which I really have notes, but not a full text. And I have to do it. And I thank you for that question. Did you have a follow-up question?
Let me ask. You thought that you are coming from conservative family background.
Somewhat.
My sisters say we are Muslim by nature.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to get what is specifically, since you practice Christian, and you're telling about Mahmoud, what is most important.
Yeah.
Interesting for him is just how he practices it. In behavior, way how the people behave, not just how they do praying or something like that. That's what you mean, I believe.
Yes.
So, what was the point that from that Christianity, I see that the people behave in Christianity very well. They are fair, they don't lie here.
Yeah.
They are very good in treating people.
Yeah.
Specifically when I am Muslim. But from my background, I see that Muslim mostly about praying, how they wear, how they read Quran and something like that. But when I see some American here, Christian, honestly, I see the behavior, the good behavior on there. So what was a turning point for you from that, lead you to be a Muslim in this guy? Also maybe you've been trying to get us this in all your lecture, but
that's the $1 million question. That's a great question. Okay, I'll try to answer it like this, brother. What first attracted me to Islam was that I've always been, well, not always, but since I've been an adult, I've been political.
Oh, okay.
And so I'm interested in changing the society that we live in
Oh, okay.
for the better. And when I was practicing Eastern religion, after being a Christian and practicing yoga, reading Hinduism and stuff, it was all about perfecting myself. Huh?
Yeah, I mean,
Releasing myself from the illusion of the world.
Oh, okay.
Self-realization. But it wasn't about fixing the world.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't about siyasi or iqtisad or any of that.
Yeah, right.
And I always had a problem with that. So the first thing that attracted me to Islam was that Islam is comprehensive. It's not just about a path for the individual, it's also a way to organize society. That's the first thing that was very attractive to it.
Right, right.
Because in my mind, it never made sense to me to just work on myself and still have to live with everybody else. You know, what's the point? So that was the first piece, and this is where Ustaz Mahmoud's ideas became so attractive to me, because even when I read that simple book, he's talking about, he called democracy political equality, and he called socialism economic equality, and then he talked about social equality, meaning that our children can marry from one another. We don't have a feeling about any group of people that would prevent us from marrying from them or them marrying from us. That's equality. He talked about those three equalities. And he said that Islam can create a society that promotes those three equalities. And the purpose of that society is for everybody then to have an opportunity to go on their own path of self-realization in an Islamic society. So he has an understanding of Islam that's comprehensive, because he's saying the solution to the community's turmoil is economic equality, social equality, and political equality. And he derives those from principles in the Quran, Mackian principles. And then he said the solution to the rest of the problem is how each of us individuals has he called it minhaj, right? A methodology, which he said was psychotherapeutic. He said that the prayer of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is a psychotherapeutic methodology for us as individuals to heal ourselves, so that we can now practice justice, we can practice democracy, we can practice equality ourselves. Not just develop a society out here that has democratic rules and policies, but to develop a democratic person, right, who tries to live by those rules and policies. So this is what really Christianity didn't offer me. Christianity didn't offer me the methodology to turn the other cheek. I came here, I still don't turn the other cheek very well. The brothers know. I still, right, like most of us, right? You slap me on this cheek, okay? I'm ready to go. So, Ustaz Mahmoud said, the purpose of, he said, Jesus said, this is Ustaz, he says, Jesus said, love those who despitefully use you. What's higher than that? What's higher than that? A person who hates you and misuses you, love him. That's Jesus' teaching. But Ustaz said, who practices it? Nobody. Not Christians, not Muslims, not Jews. The way that we can practice it is to understand the worship practice of the Prophet Muhammad, and then, peace be upon him, and then begin to imitate it, so that we begin to reflect his same behaviors and his same values and his same qualities. He's saying that if we do that, eventually we can reach a point where someone will slap you and you will realize simultaneously that came from Allah, and you won't attack the person back. Ustaz is saying that this is the purpose of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ coming in the first place. Because the teaching, Jesus brought it. Love thy neighbor as thyself, love those who despitefully
love thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy mind. Kalam tama. Yes?
Yeah.
But there's no practice. But how do we as human beings develop that behavior? That's minhaj nabawi. And it not as that minhaj nabawi is not Ustaz Mahmud's. That's the only Prophet Muhammad in the Quran and in the Hadith. We have it. Ustaz Mahmud is just saying, go back and understand it properly and apply it to yourselves, particularly the layl, and to start to develop those qualities of the Holy Prophet Muhammad. He's saying, oh my goodness. So this is the answer. That's, for me, the reason that Christianity frustrated me was because in this society, if you know the history, right? The same people that were going to church were owning my people. They would get up in the morning and they write down in their book, keeping a record. The young brother, he's still here. Oh, I woke up in the morning, right? And I beat Philip for wetting in the bed, right? I tied Maria to the tree and so forth. And then I went to the church and I prayed. And then I came from the church and I beat Simon for stealing bread. The two religions doing that man no good, right? He's beating children and beating people and holding people in an unfree state, yet he's practicing his religion. What good is it? This is my thing. What good is your religion if it doesn't allow you to respect someone's humanity? That was my question, right? So I started to question people preaching religion and not practicing. That was my thing that was irritating me.
So that means you were believing. You think maybe all religions are okay as a religion, but you were looking for how we can take that religion and put the guy who's going to put a system for it so that it's going to be implemented in a right way.
Yeah, I didn't have it all worked out so clearly, but yes, I believe that, and Ustaz Mahmoud gave me the words. He said, any faith is as good as any other faith, if it's just at the level of faith. I'm a Jew, and I believe Judaism is the truth. I'm a Muslim, and I believe Islam is the truth. I'm a Christian, and I believe Christianity is the truth. MashaAllah, Ustaz Mahmoud said, each of those is equally fine.
Yeah, right.
Because it's just based on belief.
Right.
He said what we need is it to be based on certain knowledge and practice. See? Not just saying I'm Christian, I'm Jewish, I'm Muslim, and nothing no benefit comes from it.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So yeah, I was interested. My question was, how can I improve myself and at the same time be part of something that's improving the rest of society as whole? And I saw that in Islam when I first heard it presented to me. And I saw in Ustaz Mahmoud a very clear, comprehensive ideology about how those things work together and why they work together. So it is very convincing. That small pamphlet was so convincing to me when I read it. I told him, I came back, I said, I think you're the truth I'm looking for. Because I read that book and it just, my questions that I had were just very clearly explained, and then this whole picture, bigger picture, was opened up to my mind. That's what I saw.
Can we conclude that religious, it doesn't matter, but what is matter is how you practice it or how you behave, no matter how you believe, which religion you believe in, how you practice it, does that matter? Can we say that?
I believe that that's true, because I believe that if you're Muslim and I'm Christian, right? And I have ma'amala and you don't have ma'amala, right? Then I'm the one practicing the religion.
Right.
That's Islam. The ma'amala is Islam, not the person calling themselves Muslim.
That's correct.
Isn't it? Yeah. So you can be anything, Yahoo. Inshallah.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, I know some very beautiful Jewish people, you know, and they have very good ma'amala.
So, Brother Abdullah, just before we wrap it up, and I want to take you out a little bit of religions.
Okay.
I want to take you back to Sudan.
Okay.
Can you tell us what's the funniest thing or what's saying right now it's still in your mind about Sudan or about people or something happened to you during your time over there?
Man, so many beautiful things happening in Sudan.
It doesn't have to be beautiful. Something just still you remember it and it's a different
When I first went to Rufa, Stas's village where he's raised. He's raised. We went there and it was raining, and we were invited to dinner, and it rained after sunset, so we had to wait. And then we were supposed to walk from Dim Rufaha to another Hilla, okay? And it had been raining for hours, right? And so I'm American, right? And I'm like, I know we're not going to walk out in this night, you know? I'm thinking, okay? And so after a few hours, our leader, Sheikh Khalid, said, okay, Mazumin, let's get ready. And so I'm getting ready, and we go outside, and it's pitch black. You can't see anything. And just mud, deep. Okay? Cold, wet, and pitch black. And we're walking across a field, so you can't see where we're going. And so I'm complaining. I'm saying to the brothers next to me, we should have a vote. We should have a vote, because if we vote, I know we do not want to go across this field. I'm saying this. And even one of the brothers, he agreed with me. So we're walking in the cold, and we're walking in the dark. And I'm just like wondering, what have I done to myself? I think I'm with mad people, you know. And just be going to dinner 2 hours after you've been invited at night, in the mud and in the cold and in the darkness, right? We walked a little bit further, and sure enough, we saw like a lantern waving. And this guy, he was waiting for us because he had invited us, and we had said we're coming. So he's waiting for us for dinner. We got there, they warmed up the dinner, and we ate. It must have been maybe 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, I don't know. This showed me something amazing, and about Sudanese. And then I heard the story that if you're invited, if your guest hasn't arrived after, an hour, then you can start worrying about them, and then, if they haven't arrived after 2 hours, you can start to, check. So that was, I thought, yeah, that's a story that comes to mind. That really taught me something about, just how special Sudanese people are. Yeah, culture is so big and so big.
So last question that I wanted to ask. Were you in Sudan when Nimeri committed that crime against the Ustaz Mahmoud and the Republican? Were you in Sudan at that time?
Yes.
How did the news hit you? I mean, what did you think at the time?
That's a great question. That's a real powerful question. I was at that time, the security forces had confiscated our house, and I was living with my uncle Taha in Khartoum North. My uncle, he's a Republican brother, and we were involved in meeting. Ustaz was directing us from prison, right? Directing us from prison, and then he came out of prison, right? He came out of prison like on the 18th of December. And we had a mutamra. The brothers and sisters came from all over the country, 700 maybe, 500 at least, crowded around his house and stuff. And I was one of them. And I could tell a long story, but I'll make it a short story. Ustaz Mahmoud, that night he came out, he told us a story, 3 stories, about how a disease came into a village and people were dying from the disease, and then the sheikh of the village caught the disease, he dies, and then the disease leaves the village, stops, nobody else is killed. He told us that story 3 times in one night, 3 different sheikhs. He's preparing us for what he's going to do. But we didn't understand it because when I was going back to my house with Taha, God rest his soul, my uncle, who I love dearly. Now in my mind, Ustaz Mahmoud, he said something like, Ma Buddha Jamhureen to Tafa al Sudan. You got me? That we, just as the sheikhs have defended their village by dying for their village, the Jamhureen are going to have to defend this country, right? And so I'm thinking, and die for the country. I'm thinking the Jamhureen. But he didn't tell us about Jamhureen. He was talking about the sheikh. But in my mind, Ustaz Mahmoud dying was not even, he couldn't tell me a story 3 times about a sheikh dying and me understand that sheikh to represent him. I didn't understand it that way. This is what I'm saying. So I was there. This is how it hit me. Because I'm thinking, Ustaz Mahmoud, I still even believe this. If he didn't want to die, he wouldn't have died. That's how I believe, okay? But Ustaz Mahmoud submitted to what happened. That was his sacrifice that he was supposed to make, and he made it. But he told us a story. We were going back to the house. Taha said, he said in Arabic, I didn't like what Ustaz said. And I heard that as, how can you say something like that, uncle, you know? To myself, I didn't say it to him, but I'm thinking in my heart, I can't, because I hear it as, I don't like what Ustaz said. That's how I heard it, yeah. Like a rejection of what Ustaz said, you see? But what he said, so I asked him, and he said the story that he told. And again, I still didn't understand it then. I just got quiet. But in my heart, I was very confused and a little angry with Taha because I'm thinking, Ustaz has told you a story, you say you don't like his story, you should like his story, you know? But what he was saying was, he understood the thing I didn't. He understood that Ustaz Mahmoud was saying, the sheikh is going to die for his country, just like the sheikh died for his village. He told us that story 3 times in one sitting. But me, my mind was such that I didn't believe anything would happen to him. I believed he was so powerful, if he didn't want to die, he wouldn't have died. So I was never worried about him. Even when I saw Nameri on television talking about he had agreed with the verdict and stuff like that, I wasn't worried. Even when the security police picked me up and took me to jail, I wasn't worried. When they took me to a security building because somebody was asking about me because of my sister, they were asking about me. They took me to security. I wasn't worried at all. I didn't believe Ustaz Mahmoud was going to die. A brother asked me, he said, this is my mind, you see how crazy I am. He said, Abdallah, I'm worried. I said, worried about what? He said, yeah, Mary's on television agreeing with the verdict and stuff. I said, brother, there's no rope that can take Ustaz Mahmoud's life. This is my mind, right? So I was of that kind of mentality, right? And it wasn't until after the event, right, where I was in security and a student of mine came in, Osama. He was a student of Jamma Khartoum, and he now was the naib. He was the adjutant, or he worked for the second under Omar Muhammad Al-Taib, the second man under him. So he was the deputy head of security for Sudan. This was his adjutant or his lieutenant. And so he was my student. He came to me when I was in security, and he was shot. That's Abdullah. And I'm wondering, why is he? I said, Osama? He says, yeah, and he told me he worked for him and stuff. But it wasn't until I could see how shy he was then I realized that it happened. Right? But up until that moment, my mind was, that's my word. Hang it? How are they going to hang it? How does that work? I really was convinced that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
I just have one last question.
Go ahead, bro.
When you stayed in Sudan for
It's gonna be
9
the last
years,
question.
in the 70s and 80s,
Yeah.
then you returned to Sudan in 2001.
Yes.
How do you see? Did you see any difference between the time you stayed and then?
I did. I saw a difference, and I saw something beautiful too. Okay. I noticed that at the airport when I came into Sudan, and I had a special clearance I got from Bashir Bakar, one of the brothers who works in for the Foreign Service company, a clearance so that I could travel through customs without being bothered. Right? I had on my passport, leave me alone. Okay? So when I went in there, I noticed that the police were not behaving like Sudanese. That's my feeling. They were rude. Yeah, they were rude and aggressive and I didn't like it. You know? I didn't like it. They didn't really do anything to me. But their attitude, you know, their attitude was like aggressive and unbecoming. But I knew why. You know, I knew why they were behaving like that, but that was my first impression. But the beautiful impression I had was I expected that Southern Sudanese would not be as comfortable in Khartoum as when I left it. Because of the press I'm reading, right? About John Juweed and I don't mind, okay? So I'm thinking, when I go to Khartoum, I don't expect to find Southerners as numerous in Khartoum or as comfortable in Khartoum. To my surprise, there were more Southerners in Khartoum and they were as comfortable as I've ever seen them. So what it appeared to me, the relations between the Sudanese people hadn't changed. The government, the change is clear. But the people, Southern Sudanese, were walking around Khartoum comfortable. MashaAllah, okay? And I didn't expect to see that. That's really, when I returned home, that was a beautiful thing to see, but it's not what I expected. I expected to see them, you know, hostile, oppressed. You know what I mean? Is that okay, perhaps?
I think that's not question, but just to follow up.
Okay.
What you said, that's the police, as the police is changing.
Yeah.
Every one of us, when we go to Sudan,
Yeah.
what you're saying is correct. The Sudanese as a society is changing. It's different.
For the worse.
That's how we see our brother and sister.
Yeah.
When we go back, we have in our mind something that we're gonna find very nice people as we used to. But we will go there, even from our brother and sister, we see different people. So the society is
starting
changing. And that's a good conclusion.
طيب نحن نشكر الحضور ونشكر دكتور عبد الله إرنست بابا اخونا على هذا اللقاء الحي الذي ما يعني لامس مشاعرنا واحاسيسنا، وبدي فرصه للاخت عبير تعبر عن مشاعر الجاليه. تفضلي يا عبير.
In English, I'm going to do it in English. Thank you. I think it was very enlightening for me because
ارفعي صوتك يا عبير.
a little bit better. You know it. I know yours. You know mine. I grew up here, so I came to Jalia to reconnect. But that point you said about Sudanese was what made me also want to know my people better. Because I go to visit only 3 times, and the last time I went to visit, that happened to me. I went to a store. And just based by what I looked at, the last time you seen me 5 years ago, I owed him money. He wouldn't take it. He said that I knew you would come back 5 years ago. So when I came back this last time, it was in 2011, I decided to my people, be part of it. Because there is a lot of change, a lot of misunderstanding of Islam and how we are considered after September 11th. I grew up here all my life. It was very difficult for me. And I keep telling them we are people of ethics, we are people of generosity, we are people of honor, and there's something different. So you're right, there is a platform that we need to now obtain. We're hoping we can do it. So this is why. Thank you. Very good.
طيب شكرا عبير. وبدأ نص الجو جو رمضاني، نختم نحن بقصيدة من أحمد قول لنا أنا موسى العشق. عبد الله عنده يقول لنا قصيدة برضه ولا نسيت؟
somebody else. Somebody else has to do that. That sounds like me. I was a fanatic. I was
موسى ولا شيء؟ لا أنا موسى العشق ربي أرني أنا موسى العشق ربي أرني أنا موسى العشق ربي أرني أنا موسى عشق ربي أرني غصن باني فوقه البدر بدا أم غزال راح يغزو أسدا أنا موسى عشق ربي أم مليح يتسنى مرحا حيث أضحى بالبهام منفردا أنا موسى العشق ربي أرني صنم الحسن الذي لم يره عاشق إلا له قد عبدا أنا موسى العشق ربي أرني قلت يا مولاي جود لي كرما بوصال قال لا أبدا أنا موسى العشق ربي أرني قلت فالوعد به تسلية قال يحتاج يفي من وعدا أنا موسى العشق ربي أرني قلت فاسمح بخيال في الكرى قال لي ما لك طرف رقدا أنا موسى العشق ربي أرني قلت خذ روحي فقال الروح لي خل دعواها وهاتي الجسد أنا موسى عشق ربي أرني واترك الأمر إلى مالكه إن للمحبوب في الحب يدا أنا موسى العشق ربي أرني لاح لي جمر على وجنته كل ما أدنو إليه بعدا أنا موسى العشق ربي أرني فلعلي منه ألقى قبسا أو يرى قلبي على النار هدى أنا موسى
قال الروح لي خل دعواها وهاتي جسدا أنا موسى العشق ربي قلت فالوعد به تسلية قال يحتاج يفي من وعد أنا موسى عشق ربي أرني أنا موسى العشق ربي أرني أنا موسى عشق ربي أرني
هذا نسيت عني يا بابا
خلاص ممكن باخد مريم لا يا حسن
الثاني
عليكم السلام
شيل الله يا حسن يا حسن يا حسن
شيل الله يا حسن يا حسن يا حسن
يا حسن يا حسن يا حسن
شيل الله يا حسن يا حسن يا حسن
أنت باب المنان
أنت باب المنان
يا أستاذ الزمان يا قويم السنان يا منزل المحال
شيل الله يا حسن يا حسن يا حسن
أنت يا أحمد
أنت يا أحمد
أنت يا مفرد عين ما يشهد غيب ما قد بطل
شيل الله يا حسن يا حسن يا حسن
أنت نور الأحد
أنت نور الأحد
أنت حسن
المدد
أنت نعم السند
يا محمد حسن شيل الله يا حسن يا حسن يا حسن
أنت بحر الندى
أنت بحر الندى أنت شمس الهدى في المجاري بدا في الدار سكن شيل الله يا حسن يا حسن يا حسن
أنت ذاته
أنت ذاته أنت نصراته أنت حضراته أنت من يعلم شيل الله يا حسن يا حسن يا حسن
يا سراج الظلام
يا سراج الظلام يا عميم الكرم أنت نور والقلم أنت ما يسطر شيل الله يا حسن يا حسن يا حسن
سر ما نلته
سر ما نلته عنه حصلته منه اسكنته باطل فيه عن شيل الله يا حسن يا حسن يا حسن
كل من قد سوى
كل من قد سوى في علا المستوى
جامعا من طوى عنه الذي الزمان
شيل الله يا حسن يا حسن يا حسن
سيدي عبدكم
سيدي عبدكم
كله عندكم فانجزوا وعدكم بالهدى للسنان
شيل الله يا حسن يا حسن يا حسن
واغفروا ذنبه
واغفروا ذنبه
واستروا عيبه وافتحوا قلبه
علموا كل فان شيل الله يا حسن يا حسن يا حسن
إخوتي كلهم
إخوتي كلهم
أرفع جهلهم
وسع بذلهم في جميع المنن شيل الله يا حسن يا حسن يا حسن صلى ربي على خير هذا الملا خير هذا الملا على خير هذا الملا على خير هذا الملا على خير هذا الملا الله 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 الله
طيب شكرا جزيلا وبننتهي برنامجنا اليوم. شكرا جزيلا.
كيف تمام؟ ان شاء الله. الحمد لله.